It's match day with Arsenal taking on West Ham in the Premier League, looking to close the gap to 5 points and take a game in hand against Liverpool before they face Manchester City. What a day, what a weekend it could be. But Arsenal got to get their job done first. This is the Arsenal News Show, followed by a quick preview show too. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for tuning in. Very much appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here in the chat box. Thank you all, of course, for tuning in as usual. It's very much appreciated. I hope you had a really good week. I hope that it's been a good week for you and using yours as well. And let's jump straight into the chat box. Say good morning to some people. Good morning to Stevie, Maximia, Stuart, Rich, Granddaddy Gooner, Paul, Black Shine, Runs of Cows, Mubarak, Olawale, Roy, Tom, Paul Jr., Jitty, Matt G, Afsar, Carlton, Mike, Franklin, Amira, and Jordan says, good morning. Thanks for uploading the show from Thursday. I really enjoyed it. Hope I'm able to join one of these shows in the future, of course. You can go and watch back yourselves if you were unable to attend for logistical or locational reasons. You can now go and watch that. It's also available as an audio podcast. I've just uploaded that this morning after getting the audio sent over. So the video version is available on the YouTube, and the audio version is available on all your usual platforms. So I look forward to that. I did get a letter through the posts yesterday, which told me that I and others where I live can expect random power cuts at some stage. So I'm just giving you a heads up. If the show cuts out at any point in the near future for any reason, you now know the reason why. So if you were here for this show and people are like, "Where's Tom gone? The stream's gone dead." That's what would have happened. I'm hoping that I've got backup plans in case that happens, like a hotspot. But just giving you a heads up. I got that letter through the door, and I was just like, great, as if that's happened. John says, have you found a decent barber yet, Tom? Calling out yesterday that you haven't means that you can't go to your existing one ever again. No, I know, and I won't be. They definitely don't know who I am. At least I hope they don't. But yeah, I have not yet found it. I've been sent. Some people have been sending some, but the ones I'm being sent are all in London. I live 20 minutes from London Bridge or whatever, but it's a long way to go to get a haircut. Plus, after you've got a haircut, you tend to have after you get the haircut. And maybe this is just me, and maybe this tells you something about the hairdressers I've been going to. I don't know. But after you've had your haircut, you kind of want to go home and have a shower, don't you? Because you've got hair, there's little trimmings everywhere, and there's trimmings in your head, and do you know what I mean? So I don't want to go into London to have a haircut to then leave again. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing haircuts wrong. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's it. Anne says, is the 1,000 like a day challenge still on? I had someone come up to me at the live show actually on Thursday and said that I need to be more kind of not forceful. I need to be more committed to trying to get 1,000 likes. And to be honest, our 1,000 like challenge was a great thing that we did for a while, and we got 1,000 likes on the video for such a long time, every single day. But we lost games and the mood was really low, and I just feel as though that I'm not going to sit here after we've lost to or drawn to Aston Villa or lost to someone that we shouldn't have lost to and been like, can I get 1,000 likes on the video, please? I just feel like that's just so wrong to do. But if you want to like the video, like the video. Anyway, yeah, go check out the live show. If you've not yet given it a watch, tell us what you think. We do these once a year. I don't want to do them any more than once a year. I think it loses its kind of its shine if you overdo it. And I am making it very hard to become bigger and better every year. We've got some amazing guests on this year's show. All of our shows have amazing guests, but of course, getting Jeremy Aliadier on, Clive, Charles, and Harry was a fantastic crew. But we always trying to switch it up, trying to get new guests on, new faces, and treat you to some fantastic footballing opinions. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if indeed you were there, thank you for coming. And if indeed you weren't able to come, I hope you go and enjoy it. Right, moving to Arsenal news. Arsenal's under-21s have won yet again, a 4-1 win over Newcastle, but it is the birth of a brand new star. Another 15-year-old starlet is getting a lot of headlines after breaking into the under-21 level. Yes, that's right. He's playing at the 21 level. His name is Marley Salmon, centre-half, very impressive player, and doing some big things with the under-21s at the moment. So that is a name to look out for, Marley Salmon. Make sure you're keeping your eye on the under-21s, because it seems that there is another one. Of course, Aidan Heaven leaving for Manchester United has opened up a bit of a spot in the youth team, and it seems that Marley Salmon has taken that spot and is already, doing a lot to impress. And maybe it was one of the reasons why Arsenal didn't push super, super hard to try and keep Aidan Heaven at the club and allowed him to leave, and got around. I think the final fee in the end was about £1.5 million they got for Aidan Heaven's departure to Manchester United. But make sure you keep your eyes peeled and keep track of what's going on. Of course, Max Dowman currently playing with the England under-17s. If you go on the Gunners Reddit page, you can actually watch some of the highlights that have been posted from his appearance with the under-17s against the Netherlands, and it's another really impressive performance. So I recommend that you go and check that out. Moving forwards, though, and of course, Arsenal were drawn against PSV in the Champions League. They will take on PSV Eindhoven in the next few weeks. In fact, our next game after Nottingham Forest on Wednesday, our next game is against PSV in the Champions League after that, and that is in Eindhoven. I've already got my flights booked, hotel booked. We're heading out to the Netherlands. First time in the Netherlands for myself ever. So cool experience. Looking forward to it very much. And Arsenal, of course, being drawn against PSV with the second leg, which is obviously what we would prefer, is at home and gives Arsenal the best chance of reaching the last 16. However, the issue of being drawn against PSV is we've been put on, I believe, the silver side of the bracket, and that means that Arsenal, if they get past PSV, are guaranteed to be going to Madrid in the last 8 in the quarterfinals of the competition, because they have been paired against the winner of the Madrid derby between Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid. So yes, it's it's a good. I don't really know how to take it. It's a cool prize to get to the quarterfinals to play against what is most likely to be Real Madrid if Arsenal get past. Arsenal haven't played against Real Madrid in a competitive fixture since that infamous Galactico goal from Thierry Henry in 2006. We have played Real Madrid in a pre-season game a few years ago in America, but in a competitive sense, we've not played against Real Madrid for 15. It'll be 15 years, something like that. Maybe that's my bad maths. What would it be? 2006. 2016, 18 years, 19 years. Oh my goodness, my maths this morning is not good. 19 years, 19 years since we've last played. And there you go. I've worked it out. My brain's kicked into gear. But James, I love this. Mbappe is no Marino, to be fair. John says, who would you rather face, Real or athleticism? It does very much feel, doesn't it, like Atletico Madrid are the most athletic side, although it is my pet peeve when people call them Atletico. It's Atletico. Let's be very clear. There's no H in Atletico Madrid. But Arteta a ball against Simeone ball. That might be the most degenerate thing we've ever seen. Arteta without a centre forward against Simeone. It promises to be one of the most exciting games ever produced, does it not? But of course, the ability to go to the Bernabeu from a purely selfish perspective, from that point of view, to be able to go to the Bernabeu would be an incredible experience. And yeah, I sincerely hope that maybe is something that comes to reality. But first, we've got to beat PSV, and PSV have only just knocked out AC Milan. And are no mugs themselves. We've got a good record against them also, having played them before. But we've also been beaten by them in recent years as well, particularly away from home. We've had some tricky games away from home against PSV. We have had a very comfortable game against them at home before as well, winning 4-0. Of course, you'll remember, and if we get a scoreline like that at home, I imagine that we will progress through. But it's still going to be tough, tricky, and that game against PSV, the first leg is after the Forest game, but we do have a whole week of rest, which is quite good against that first leg against PSV, which is a very good thing. We then have Manchester United away from home before we then host them again in the second leg at the Emirates Stadium. Of course, after that is then Chelsea, before then going and hosting Fulham just 3 days after that. Believe it or not, we have a Sunday match. Sorry, no, it's not. What am I talking about? The international breaks after Chelsea. I had a real panic up there. I was like, 3 days? That can't be right. But no, there's an international break after the Chelsea game. But it's the FA Cup weekend coming up after this week. So there's a week gap before Arsenal take on the Dutch table toppers. Right, so there you go. That's Champions League discuss. I'm sure we might come on to that a bit in part 2 as well. But Mikel Arteta, of course, faced the press yesterday. I was there at the Shawber Realty Training Centre to hear from Mikel Arteta as he spoke ahead of the game against West Ham. He was in a pretty good mood. I thought when he first started speaking, I was like, oh dear. I don't know if he's in that good of a mood this morning. But his mood improved, I think, as the presser went on. Asked about team news, he said, no real news, to be fair. The ones that are long-term, they remain not available, and the rest, no real news either. He was asked if Ben White could start on Saturday, and he said he's ready to play. Whether to start or not is a decision we'll make tomorrow, but he's certainly available now to be part of the group, which is really good. Arteta reacted to the draw against PSV, and he says, well, we've played against them. They are a really good team. We know that. We have experienced it, and it will be a very difficult game like any other Champions League result that we could have got, or any team. We know what we are facing, and when you're at this stage, every team is really, really good. When the time comes, we'll be ready. Asked about the title race, he says, well, we have to do our job. It's going to be tough to win tomorrow against West Ham. And if we do that, obviously, we'll be looking at the game on Sunday. It's 13 games to go still. There's still a lot to play. And you can see how difficult it is for everybody to win football matches. We really need to be there. I asked Mikel Arteta about this idea that, of course, you see Mikel Merino score 2 goals, and then instinctually you're very much like, well, surely if you score 2 goals, you start. And if you score those positions, immediately the assumption is that you're going to start, those games. And I did point out the fact that if you do start Merino, obviously you lose that context. The context for him, coming off the bench against Leicester was that it was the last moments of the game. Leicester were tired. We were kind of putting balls into the box at that point. It was a game state that really suited Merino. Does starting Merino, therefore, not necessarily have that same edge? And he says, we believe he was right for that context, but then he made it right. Starting a game is very different, especially against a team that obviously they have the adaptability to play in different ways with very different behaviours within different structures, and they can use that as well. And that's what we have prepared. And I think it's a fair point, and we'll come on to my lineup in a second, but I've not, just a spoiler alert, I've not put Mikel Merino in my starting 11. I don't know if that is the right way forwards from this point. I think that he can be an option for us, and he was an option for us against against Leicester. Maybe Arteta will surprise me. I'm personally not sure that he will start him. He might start him in the game. I don't know if he's going to start him as a centre forward. Or as maybe even the most advanced midfielder. I guess we will have to wait and see if that turns out to be the case. I also asked Arteta whether or not there is any hope that Gabriel Martinelli or Bukayo Saka could indeed have any part to play in either of those 2 Champions League games against PSV. Of course, both those games come before the international break. There's been a feeling that after the international break is when we might see both of Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka. But he said, I'm not sure. That's a question for the doctor. They're both evolving really well. Probably Martinelli is a bit ahead of Bukayo as well for the extent of that injury. But then we'll have to see the next step in the previous weeks before that, how the boys are feeling and what we are prepared to do. So didn't entirely rule it out. But I think the irony is that, not the irony, but the frustration is, of course, that they probably won't be available for that game. And we're going to have to try and make it through to the quarters without 2 of our best players, then have them back, we hope, fingers crossed, for a match against Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, of course, in that position. He was asked a little bit more about Raheem Sterling, and he says, are you concerned about his confidence? He says, hopefully not, because we tried to give him as much as possible. But that's a question for him. But we are all behind him. We are the best for him, and it's going to be really important, and we need his best. and we need the players only with that mindset, is to be here to impact the team. In terms of what you've seen day to day, he seems pretty happy himself, or is there anything else to kind of talk about? And he says, yeah, I don't see anything there. He's a player that's so experienced. He knows the next action, and the next action. Apart from that, there is nothing else to live, and he's doing everything that he possibly can to make it work. So, I mean, there you go. It's very interesting about what potentially, we could see from Sterling. And speaking of Sterling, let's take a quick little break into part 2, which is going to be a preview ahead of today's game against West Ham. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where we're going to take a quick look ahead to today's game against West Ham, our lineup, what we're thinking. And yes, I'm certainly looking at this this situation between Arsenal and how we move into this space and how we decide to go with. And you could bench Sterling. You could bench. I don't think that we should. I've gone really back and forth with this situation. I've gone back and forth about how you get the best from each of the players. I feel that Sterling really struggled out on the wide left position. I think I want to move him into the middle. I think I want to move Trossard into his more natural position to get the best out of him. We saw immediately the improvement from Trossard as soon as he moved into that wide left position. And so I want to try and maximize him. But I'm not sure that starting Mikel Merino is the right option. I could be proven very wrong. And I sincerely hope I am if he starts and scores. But just give Sterling the opportunity to play in an area where he's not having to watch the line necessarily all the time for those runs in wide positions, where he can get the ball in those central areas. And if we are peppering the box, hopefully he can get on the end of those opportunities to score. He's played the position before. I'm just looking at that potentially as maybe the best solution right now. Of course, at halftime, if things aren't better, we can bring Merino on for that second half. So let's just wait and see what happens, because I think that there's a really good argument for it. I think there's a really solid option to suggest that you need the player over the next few weeks until Saka and Martinelli are back. Do you kick him out the squads and absolutely kill the guy's confidence? I'm not sure that's the right move necessarily. I know Arteta won't necessarily be thinking about that as much as he's thinking about getting all 3 points, but I'm just not sure if that's the right step. Elsewhere, the only other change I've made from the game against Leicester City is Calafiori at left back, switching out Lewis Skelly, resting him for that game against Nottingham Forest. I'm not sure that we can start Ben White as of yet. I don't know if he's fit enough to start a game either. So Timber is there, but White could be coming in for that game against Nottingham Forest if he gets a good, 30 minutes or so against West Ham today. But I've moved Calafiori in for Lewis Skelly, who I would then start against Nottingham Forest, because I think Calafiori is going to give us a bit more while we're at home, going forwards, attacking the opposition box. Everyone else, though, stays as is for now, because there isn't much choice when it comes to things. Jorginho, maybe. Colin says he would move Jorginho in for Partey. Shaq says that Timber is needed for Forest, so start White. Again, Arteta didn't necessarily feel overly committed to having White in from the start. I would have done that if he was more committed to the idea of it, but at the moment, I haven't got that commitment from him. Scoreline, get your prediction scores in the chat box, what you think the scoreline's going to be. I'm going to go with 3-0 Arsenal win here today, actually. I'm going to go with Sterling getting a goal. I'll go with that again. I'm going to go with Sterling getting a goal. And I'm also going to go with Martin Odegaard getting a goal and a couple of assists. Need a really big day from Martin Odegaard. He needs to have a really big second half of this season. And we need to start seeing more from our captain. So I'm going to go 3-0 in this game to get all 3 points. Chat box, Temmy's going 4-0 West Ham, Bowen brace, Araya double own goal. Temmy's always in our reverse psychology, hoping for the opposite. Shaq says 2-1. Sharp says 3-0 as well. Diane says 1-0 to the Arsenal. Runs of Cal says 2-0. Barry says 2-0. Kiki says 3-1. Logan says 2-0 Arsenal. Matt G says 3-0 Arsenal. Perry's going 2-1 as well. With Trossard and Waneri on the score sheet. Manny X going 3-0. Jones McGarfield says 3-0. Waneri hat-trick. James says 2-0 with Sterling and 2-0 once he comes off. Ramsey says 2-0 Trossard, Nerdegaard, Maximius going 2-0, Sladen going 3-0 Arsenal with a Rice goal. Patrick 4-2. Alex says 3-1. Mohammed says 3-0. Grantley Poo says 4-0. And I'll continue to throw some of those scorelines up as we move into part 3 of the show. Your questions and more right after this. Okay, this is part 3 of today's show, where we're going to be jumping into the chat box and tackling some of your thoughts, some of your questions. If you'd like to get one read out, use a big capital Q. It does help us to see them in the chat more. Doesn't mean putting the whole question in caps. That doesn't help. But if you use a capital Q at the start of your comment, of course, that does help me to pick them out much, much easier. Perry says, can we start Merino in the left midfield position and have more attacking threat? Potentially as well. I mean, you then have to pick between Rice and Partey. Actually, I'll see if I can find... I saw an amazing graphic. I think it was a couple of days ago. Because there's this stigma around Declan Rice in particular. There's this huge stigma around what he's like. Is he progressive enough? Does he move the ball forward enough? And I saw this graphic. I'm going to see if I can find it. Because what it showed was actually Declan Rice has become one of the most progressive players, not just in the Premier League, but in Europe as well, since moving into that 8th position. He needs to score more goals, that is for sure. Absolutely needs to score more goals, because I think he's only got 1 in the league this season. That's not good enough. That really, really does need to change. But I'm struggling, if I'll be honest, to find this graphic at the moment. I'm sure I saw it on my timeline ever so recently as well, and it seems to have... Oh no, I've got it. Okay, hold on. I have got the so how do I do this? Slideshow, escape slideshow, add to slideshow, and now if I share the screen with you, you should be able to see it. So yes, this is I'm not sure who made this. So unfortunately, I can't give any credit. It doesn't seem to have like a watermark on it or anything. But this is actually a piece looking at Damsgaard and kind of how progressive he is as a player for Brentford. This is the top 50 Premier League creators ranked by expected goals assisted crossed with progressive passes. So looking at progressive passes and expected assisted goals. In that bracket, in that circle that you can see, is what's known as the elite progressors and creative hybrids. You've got Bruno Fernandes, Bruno Guimaraes, Yuri Tielemans, Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course. And within that circle, as you can see, is Declan Rice, who, as we know, a player that has been getting quite a lot of stick for not being progressive enough and for not being as good as other potential players in that bracket. Well, based upon what you're seeing here, that is very much not the case. And Rice is incredibly well rated. So no, I don't think I would move Merino into that position at the moment. I think Merino is proving to be more of a finisher and an impact player from the bench, rather than a starting figure in the team at this point in time. Maxime says, Tom, have you heard about the rumours that Roberto Alaba is confirmed to be our sporting director by the end of the season? The source is not too convincing, though. What's your take? It's fair to say that I've not heard anything to corroborate that claim. I did see the tweet doing the rounds, of course. I've heard nothing. It was a joke that was made yesterday between some of us, but again, it wasn't really anything that led to anything being mentioned that would give me an indication that that's the truth. Doesn't say that it's not true. No, it doesn't mean that it's not true, but I haven't been able to corroborate that claim. So I hope it's true. I think Roberto Alaba will be a very, very good pick for Arsenal, but nothing to confirm or deny that right now. Adrian says, Tom, you mentioned that there would be a few questions in the presser about our finances, but not one journo brought it up. I don't know. I had my questions. I decided on what I was going to ask. I wanted to ask about Merino and I wanted to ask about Saka and Martinelli to get an update on them. So yeah, sorry about that. But I thought there might be questions, but there wasn't. AK says, why not give Butler or Odeji a chance up front in the first half? If it doesn't work out, a sub can be made in the second. Let's use our centre forward in the Champions is that centre forward meant to be position instead of the false 9? I don't know if that's the right choice. I'm really not sure that's the right pick at the moment. Samuel says, Tom, I tried chocolate cake from Nando's yesterday from your recommendation, and indeed, it was incredible. Well, there you go. Yet another Happy customer. I'm trying to tell you it's the greatest chocolate cake on earth, and there is going to be no one saying otherwise, because you cannot say otherwise. It is not an opinion. It is just a fact. Joel says, Tom, process aside, is there no striking option from the youth setup who is able to contribute other than sitting on the bench? I've had a glimpse of Keon Edwards. He looks fit for purpose. What are your thoughts? If we were going to choose a young forward to come on, I'd probably lean into Andre Harriman and Noose than I would any other player right now. I'd feel like he would be the one I'd be more likely to have that. ZA says, Tom, congratulations on the live event. Charlie Watts bigged it up yesterday. Charles was fantastic, as usual. And very grateful for Charles, of course, jumping in. Make sure you're subbed to a channel if you're not done so already, of course. Vala says, could Marino be our special little super sub that seals tough games and brings home the big one? I think that there is definitely a player that is there that is able to give Arsenal something this season. I think he's been overlooked. I think he's been prejudged. I think there's been a lot of exaggerative takes on Mikel Marino. He was injured at the start of the campaign. He's really started to kind of flow a bit more now. He had a bit of a break, had this, that winter break that we had over in Dubai. Could that be a magic bit of dust that's sprinkled over our midfielder to help us moving forwards? I sincerely hope so. I should have said sand. They're out in Dubai. Sprinkled a little bit of magic sand. SNGC8 says, did you see the reports on Twitter that Alabe is pretty much our next sporting director again? You've kind of covered that. Yes, I did, but I don't know if that's true. Manny X says, do you know if Jeremy Aliadier has re-signed with the club yet to be our new centre forward? He definitely put himself forward for it. He certainly was very up for it as well. John says, you need to get a sponsorship from Nando's for the channel. I don't think Nando's do sponsorship, but if they did, and if anyone listening is working with the PR team at Nando's or works with the commercial or marketing team at Nando's or know anyone that's got contacts there, please put me in touch. Please put me in touch. Sirius says, Tom, I am worried that we could have an Eboué Part 2 situation if the fans turn on Sterling. I mean, I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, but there is that worry, isn't it? If Sterling starts today, has a bad game, could the crowd get on him? I think that's a point that Clive raised in the live show. Is there a worry that the crowd will get on his back? Because the away fans certainly felt like they were against Leicester. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Speak of the devil, Clive in the chat says, that simple Marino left 8 thing suddenly feels like the thing to do. Rice, I just don't feel comfortable. I mean, taking Rice or Partey out right now, I think it's something maybe we can do in the second half of games if one of them isn't necessarily having the best of fixtures. But maybe do you rest one of them for the Forest game? Perhaps it's an opportunity to do that, but it's tricky. Orange Juice in the chat says, Tom, how does the presser work? Like if a reporter asks a question that you had before you that you wanted to ask, do you have a backup to pivot to? What's it like in that moment? Yeah, you're usually going in with like a few things in mind, because you may just stick to your question. Like a few people had asked about Mikel Marino before it got to my question. No one had asked a specific question that I wanted to ask about kind of the game state that he was introduced and how that would change based upon starting him. So I stuck with it. But yeah, you do have the idea of some questions that you want to ask going in. Sometimes I haven't decided on what I'm going to ask until I get there. Sometimes I've not even decided until people start asking questions, because sometimes it's a day where you're really lacking inspiration of what to ask. I've usually got a podcast on the way up, and that helps as inspiration as well. And of course, I listen to you guys in the chat, and that can give me inspiration as well. But yeah, I think sometimes you want to react to the moment, see what Arteta's kind of riffing off more and what he's reacting to positively to get kind of really good answers. If you get a really long answer that you've done pretty well, if you get a short answer, it's not been such a good question. So to be fair, that's not entirely fair. You can ask a good question that doesn't get a long answer or just gets a quick answer. Sometimes it might be just to add a little bit of context sometimes. But obviously you want to try and get Arteta out of his shell. Want him speaking, want him kind of speaking plenty on things. But I thought it was a really good presser actually yesterday. I thought there was some really good stuff. I particularly thought James Ollie's questions about kind of the difference between challenging Man City and challenging Liverpool. That was quite interesting, and seeing how Arteta reacted to that as well. So yeah, you can read the whole transcript, of course, on the Football.London website on our every word. We put up the transcript ASAP after the presser is completed, with every single word and the questions written out as much in detail as possible as well. SN says, what do you think of Hugo Ekitike from Frankfurt? He's very similar to Isak, and I'm a huge fan. Maybe compare their stats. I've already done that, actually, because I had a conversation with, there's a few chats going on, actually, about Hugo Ekitike, and it kind of made me want to look at how he would compare to, say, Sesko, or how he would compare to Isak, and there was some really good informative stats. Let me find them for you. So Ekitike's non-penalty goals 11, non-penalty XG 13.4, goals per shot 0.15. So he's underperforming his non-penalty XG at the moment by 2.4. And he has a goal per shot ratio of 0.15. Sesko, on the other hand, has a non-penalty goal tally of 9, so 2 less than Ekitike. But his non-penalty XG is 5.6. He's currently outperforming his XG, his non-penalty XG, by 3.4. Very impressive. He has a goal per shot tally of 0.24 as well, which is also really, really impressive. You want to go back to last season, Hugo Ekitike got 4 non-penalty goals to 2.4 non-penalty XG. So he did outperform that, but obviously it was a much smaller sample size. Whereas across all of last season, Sesko had 14 non-penalty goals and a non-penalty XG of 7.7. He nearly doubled that with a goal per shot ratio of 0.30. It's also worth pointing out that when it comes to Sesko and Ekitike, Sesko is playing currently in the 4th worst team in the Bundesliga when it comes to shot creating actions. So in terms of the players that are around him creating opportunities, it's nowhere near as strong. Whereas Frankfurt, I think, are 3rd in the Bundesliga when it comes to shot creating actions per 90. So Sesko's playing in a less creative team, scoring more chances than he should be based upon the XG that we're seeing. Whereas Hugo Ekitike is scoring slightly less than what should be expected for the number of chances that are being created in that side. He is better at creating opportunities for himself. He's a better kind of technical player than what Sesko is. But from my perspective, I'm looking at the centre forward position, and the one trait I'm looking at above all others is clinicalness, ruthlessness, finishing ability. And Sesko has got that finishing ability that I think that Arsenal should certainly be looking to try and bring in. And he's only 20 years old as well. But, sign both. Get best of both worlds. Why not? Bring them both in. That would be great to see. ZA says, today's game, very nervy and physical. I think it's going to be an Everton again. It's funny as it is. It depends on which Arsenal that we get. Absolutely. 100%. Trader Mike says, with West Ham's low block, likely a no Paqueta, like the Partey rest, who was ordinary against Leicester. Maybe we should bring Marino in. John says, I think our reasoning for beating West Ham is the table currently on form, but you can't ignore that either. SN says, thank you for answering the questions. Great work. Thanks, mate. Very much appreciated. Dark's here saying, good luck beating West Ham with 0 attack. Well, we've done pretty well so far at beating teams with 0 attack. So let's just wait and see what happens, because I think there's a good chance that we will win today's game. But equally, we've got to be very careful about that. I do think that there's a little bit of trolling going on there. Damien, it's my birthday tomorrow. Well, happy birthday, Damien, for tomorrow, mate. Have a great day. Temi says, can you ask Arteta about him managing notoriously lazy but talented players like Hazard and Ronaldinho? Morgan says, thought Timber has looked a bit leggy, so I would be starting Ben if the doc agrees that he can do so. Yeah, I think that if he's fit to start, it's fair to start him. But if they're concerned about starting him, then start him against Forest on Wednesday. Gooner Oz says, do you think that Harriman and Noose would be used as a cameo if we could get a good lead? If he's even in the team, he might not be in the team. I think it'll be Butler or Adeji. Maybe Keon Edwards is even ahead of him at the moment. We don't know if he's going to be in the team or not. We will have to wait and see who is on that bench for the game today, this afternoon. 3 o'clock kickoff, of course. You can follow all the coverage of the game if you're unable to watch it on the Football.London live matchday blog that I'll be running. Of course, you can then hear all of Mikel Arteta's comments and words in our post-match press conference live blog, and then every single word and question in detail in our every word piece. So make sure you check that out. I'm looking forward to getting up there this afternoon. It's been a while since I've been at the Emirates. What was the last time we were there? What was the last game at the Emirates? It was the Man City match. That was 20 days ago against Manchester City. 20 days ago was Arsenal's last game in their own ground. So it's been 3 weeks nearly since we've been at the Emirates. That's quite incredible So, yeah, looking forward to getting there. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time, as always. Do make sure you drop a like on the video. Do make sure as well that if you haven't yet caught up on it, if you haven't yet watched it, you can now go and see our live event from Thursday evening. Of course, if you're going to watch it today. We talk about West Ham. It's going to be out of date in about 6 hours' time. So, yeah, make sure you absorb all of that. We do talk about more than just West Ham. We talk about transfers. We talk about the empty January window. We talk about Liverpool and their recent slip and what that means for the more broader context of the title race. We talk about players like Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly. We talk about referees and Arsenal's misfortune with injuries this season. And we get some really good questions from our audience that were there and doing all good things on the night as well. So go give that a watch or a listen. It's available on all of our platforms, YouTube, and of course on the podcast format as well. Have a fantastic Saturday. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.